All right. Well, it's early morning, early-ish. It hasn't been as hot the last couple of days, so I can wear the hockey jerseys for now till it heats up later. Article I'm reading on the hockey news. Mike Brophy ends it by saying if I could have any goalie for a game 7 in history, it would be Patrick Roy. But if I was a hockey executive and I could pick 100 coaches, Roy, or I could pick any coach, Roy wouldn't make the top 100. I thought it was kind of cruel. Now, I've said Patrick Roy in Colorado, it wasn't working, and yet I also threw in I would love to have him for goaltender coach and assistant GM, that kind of thing. Like, fine. Brophy mentions Patrick Roy's quitting in Montreal. He mentions Patrick Roy not wanting to go to the Olympics in 2002, and because he wasn't assured of the starting job. Roy never came out and said that. But here's the thing. He's Patrick freaking Roy. I hated Roy. I did. As a Bruins fan, I couldn't stand him. And just in general, he was so cocky, and his attitude and his arrogance. Well, that's it. That's what made him the best goalie in the world, was that arrogance. The difference between a good goalie and a great goalie can be that arrogance. I look at Cloutier in Vancouver. Cloutier takes a lot of shit. The thing with Cloutier was he was a good guy. He was a nice guy. And he got rattled. And other goalies of that time, whether you're looking at Patrick Roy, Martin Brodeur, Belfour comes to mind. Belfour could play like shit for weeks, but he still oozed this charisma, this attitude, this don't fuck with me thing. And that's why he would bounce back. That's why he could have a crappy year, finish it out in San Jose and everybody goes, he's done. And then go to Dallas and he's great. Have a shit year in Dallas because he doesn't feel like playing, and then sign in Toronto and he's great again. It's that arrogance that comes across. So to say, well, Patrick Roy wouldn't be in my top 100 for coaching option, so you wouldn't want him in your organization at all? And then to say it's always about him and not about the team. Well, it kind of ends up that way for everybody, doesn't it? In the end, you're looking out for yourself. Now, the fact that the Avalanche made Patrick Roy VP for personnel, okay, and he had absolutely no say in the players that were on the team, and there was no consulting him about anything, means that part of what Colorado hired him for, he wasn't doing. And he wouldn't have signed a contract to do it if he didn't want to do it. He didn't want to just be a coach. He felt that he could add more. Now, whether he could or couldn't, I'm not debating. But Colorado gave him that. Joe Sakic gave him that option. And when he quit, Sakic said, do you want to think this over? So if he was such a crappy coach, Sakic wouldn't have said, do you want to think this over? Patrick Roy as a player quitting on Montreal, if somebody wants to shit on that, I'm going to tell you right now, Mario Tremblay, that is one of the worst coaches I ever saw in the NHL. That was an embarrassment. I watched that game, and Patrick Roy should not have been in that net. After he allowed 5 goals in the first period, he should have been pulled to start the second. If you're not going to pull him after the 4th goal, which he should have been, once you reach that 4th goal and you've got Patrick Roy as your starter, you pull him. You say, you know what? You don't have it tonight, Patrick. That's cool. Take a seat on the bench. I'm going to put Rasko in because who cares? We're losing anyways. That's basically what was on the back of Andre Rasko's jersey. Who cares? We're losing anyways, because that's the only time he went in. But to write an article where you basically make it sound like Patrick was this selfish prick. He was an arrogant prick. But I never saw selfish. Because if he was selfish, he wouldn't have been popular with his teammates. And he was always very popular with his teammates that I saw. I never heard once that a teammate got crossed by Roy. Belfour, a guy like Barrasso, Sean Burke. There's some goalies with some strong personalities that had differences with teammates. But I never heard that with Roy. Roy won 10 games in overtime in 93. If the game got to overtime, it was over. That fire, that determination, that willingness to do whatever you have to win is why Raw quit. Because he felt like he was going into this season with the same team that failed to make the playoffs last season, if not worse. And he got nothing. And it's fine. It's fine. He's not a great coach. This is the strange part. I'm not arguing that Patrick Roy is a great coach. That's an aside for now. This is about Roy's personality and his arrogance and what Colorado gave him to work with. Colorado's probably better off. Colorado might even make the playoffs if they play this coach thing right. If they hire the right guy, they're set. They have a good enough team that with structure and good coaching, they can be in the mix and they can make the playoffs in that division. There's enough turmoil right now in the Central that they can get there. But for Brophy to turn it into, well, Raw's always been selfish. Like the title of the article is, When Patrick Roy Doesn't Get His Way, He Goes Home. Yeah, you named 3 incidents in 25 years. I'm sure if I scrounge around for Gretzky's mishaps, Gretzky was known to have an attitude and arrogance. The whole fucking Oilers had arrogance in the 80s. I'm sure I could dig up shit on almost anybody who's a star player. Because when you're a star player, you have to be smarter than the other players, but you have to be more talented and you have to have the personality to keep it up. Because the guys who don't have the personality to keep it up are the ones that fall apart quickest. Patrick Roy probably never coaches in the NHL again. But to turn around and write an article where you basically just rip him a new one just because he quit the Avalanche. I did not do a video to do that. I did not do a video, Patrick Roy quits as coach, and then say, well, he's nothing but an asshole anyways. Did I like him? No. Do I respect him? Hell yeah. He's got a lot of fire, which doesn't make for a great coach sometimes. You look at some of the guys who are out of the game. You look at Mike Keenan. You look at Tortorella's on his last job. He's on his way out. Hitchcock's a fiery guy. This is his last year. A lot of those coaches, Bob Hartley's out in Calgary. I don't know, with it, the guys who are really emotional and fired up, at this stage, they're kind of being phased out. It's kind of an old school way of doing things. Joel Quenneville, John Quenneville's his kid, or his nephew, whatever. Don't flame me in the comments. Joel Quenneville, who was one of my favorite defensemen in Hartford. So that proves that he wore that jersey. I remember Joel Quenneville. Had a lot of his hockey cards in the 80s. But as a coach, he gets fired up. But he's very controlled. And he's very smart. He is the best coach in the league. There's a lot of talk about Babcock, but Joel Quenneville can coach him into coach circles around him. Patrick Roy will never be in that category. And that fiery emotional side is part of why Patrick Roy, as a coach, I don't know, is he selfish? You have to be. But does that prevent him from doing his job? No. Can you write an article where you say, if he doesn't get his way, he goes home? Well, there's a guy who wears this jersey that says that if the Washington or if the NHL doesn't go to the next Olympics, he's going by himself if he has to because he's going to represent Russia. So how does that work? Now he'd be suspended by the Capitals and yada. Is he being selfish? Is he playing for his country? I'm sure I could write an article for both sides. I could write an article. Ovechkin, selfish, leaves his team, and he's gone for weeks and he could get hurt over there. How selfish! I could write an article. Patriotic Russian willing to stand up to NHL in order to represent his country. See how that works? I could write an article on Patrick Roy right now. Patrick Roy, uncompromising, and that should be applauded. And I could write an article exactly as Brophy has done, just turn everything around so that instead of making him look like he was the asshole, Ronald Corey and Mario Tremblay rode the fucking Habs into the ground. They were the proudest franchise in history. And part of the reason that the curse exists is it started with them. It's not when Patrick Waugh left. The Habs curse is shitty management. And once they started it down that road, and the Habs luster came off, and suddenly for players it was sort of, well, the jersey has a lot of history behind it. Management though. And Bergevin right now in Montreal is trying to change that. And as soon as he makes a move, gutsy move, he gets shit on. And this all started with Corey and Tremblay. They were terrible. Nobody blamed Patrick Waugh for wanting out of Montreal at the time that happened. Nobody said, well, he was only in there for 9 goals. What a whiner. No, we all said the same thing. What the fuck are you leaving Patrick Waugh in there for 9 goals for? Why? When he makes the save on Fedorov and throws his arms in the air like, look, I made a save. Get him out of there. He's pissed. Mario Tremblay was horrible. Absolutely brutal. So I don't understand in the article, what was Patrick Waugh supposed to do? Was he supposed to go, well, the coach clearly doesn't respect me as the greatest goalie in the game. He left me in there, I can only assume to humiliate me, so I'm going to stay here. I'm going to stay on a team that's falling apart, under management that doesn't know what the hell they're doing, with a president who clearly doesn't have a handle on what the hell's going on the ice. I'm going to stay here. No. Like when Luongo left for Florida and he almost skipped out the door because he was so happy to leave Vancouver, I didn't blame him. I didn't go, how dare he? That's awfully selfish of him. He should have wanted to stay in Vancouver. No, get out, dude. Get out. You know, this boat's, you know, the bow's in the water. We're taking on lots of water right now. The pumps can't get ahead. Go on out, Roberto. There's the lifeboat. That's going to Florida. Was Luongo selfish? No. He wanted to play in Florida. He expressed that desire years beforehand. And the Canucks, like assholes, held on to him when he didn't want to be here. But again, I could write an article about how selfish Luongo is. And how, you know, he made a big deal out of not playing in the Heritage Classic against Ottawa. The funny thing is he didn't make a big deal out of not playing in the Heritage Classic. Everybody else made a big deal out of him not playing in the Heritage Classic. But there were fans at the time that said Eddie Lack's a better goaltender right now than Roberto Luongo. Yeah, Lack's a better goaltender. Yeah, Lack was on a bit of a hot streak. But it's Roberto frickin' Luongo. Look at the stats since then. It's not even close. Roberto's the better goaltender than Eddie Lack. Nobody on the planet is going to say, well, career-wise, I would say Eddie Lack's better than Roberto Luongo. Because it's impossible. But fans are assholes. So, you know, so there you go. I could, passionate Vancouver fan base disrespected by Roberto Luongo, or asshole Canucks fans drove Luongo out of town. Look, I can write a piece too, and it can sound like shit. So yeah, to sum up, Patrick Waugh, is he an asshole? Maybe. Could be. I have no idea. Is he selfish? Probably. Did Colorado give him that contract? Where he said he was going to have some say? Did they call him after free agency and say, hey, Patrick, we just wanted to touch base. The list of players you gave us, we did our best. We were in on, let's say he put in for Lucic. We were in on Lucic, but Lucic had his heart set on Edmonton, so we weren't able to get him. You wanted Demers. We wanted Demers. The numbers just didn't add up. Why don't you come in? You know, we'll talk about it. We'll go through some things, and we'll work things out for next year. From my understanding, him and Joe Sakic hadn't talked to each other since July 1st. It's August 15th. I don't blame him for being pissed off. Part of my job is I have say in what players I get to coach. That's part of my job. You gave me that job. That's the job you gave me. And now, you know, the season's been over for us for months. And I've had no say in anything. So why do I have this job again? Patrick Roy's got a lot of money. He doesn't need to be an NHL coach. He wanted to be an NHL coach. Does that get respected? No. What if Patrick Roy had come out a few years ago and said, I'd like to be a coach in the NHL, but I got a lot of money from when I was a player. I'm good. I don't need to be a coach. Does Brophy write an article then? Whenever Patrick Roy has lots of money, he won't coach. No. Was it selfish of him to come in and coach the Avalanche? Absolutely not. Could he have said, no, I don't need the money? Absolutely. So yeah, it's stupidity. It is typical. I understand it's summer and there's not a whole lot to write about. You go through the hockey news right now and they're trying to reframe these UFAs are left over and these guys are still in the trade block and they've worked them all into one article now. And it's like, look, you guys are trying to tell the same story 15 different ways because it's slow and it's summer, and I get it. But trying to create a sensationalistic headline and trying to frame one of the greatest legends in the history of the game as being arrogant when most of the great legends in the game get there by being arrogant. There's an air of, I am the best. Fuck you, you can't touch me. Sidney Crosby has that when he plays on the ice. Alex Ovechkin has that when he plays on the ice. Drives people nuts. That's why people don't like Crosby. Parts of it, anyways. Don't get in. Don't flame me in the comments. But part of the reason with Crosby is, yeah, when he's on the ice, he's cocky. He goes into every face-off with the idea of, I'm going to win this face-off, I'm going to beat you, we're going to win, and I'm the best. You have to be that way if you are going to be the best. That's just how it works. So anyways, that's it from me for now. I will be back later. Appreciate the hell out of the fact that I'm getting a lot of subscribers right now. By all means, this is, a Patrick Waugh video I didn't expect to make, but I feel like framing it that back in the 90s, Waugh was selfish is stupidity. Because then not only did Montreal trade Waugh, rather than sitting down with him going, okay, there's something wrong, or fire Mario Tremblay, which would have made a hell of a lot more sense. They didn't. They did that not too long after. You could have fired him, brought in Jacques Demers, and everything's better. But no, you don't do that. Because Tremblay. But then when they traded Waugh, they didn't get enough value back for him. The trade for Patrick Waugh was a joke. I felt bad for Thibault, though. Jocelyn Thibault was a damn good goaltender who sadly will always be saddled with the fact that he was traded for Patrick Waugh. He was not Patrick Waugh, but he was a damn good goaltender in his own right, and I still have rookie cards of him around this apartment, and I have cards of him from when he played for the Hawks, and I loved Jocelyn Thibault. I thought he was a very good goaltender, just he wasn't Patrick Waugh. But then again, who is? Certainly not Mike Brophy.